kind of going into like basically like the pillars of what a pregame routine should be, is for me, like the number one thing is just consistency. Whatever you're doing, be consistent about it. And that includes if you have a bad habit, right? That includes if you have a bad habit. And what I mean by that is if you normally go to bed at whatever the time is because you play video games at night, and then you normally wake up at noon the next day, let's say you have a 7 o'clock game the next day. If you say, oh, like I need to have a better habit of getting up early. So I go to bed at midnight normally. Instead of getting up at noon, I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. so that I can have a good pregame routine. Well, that's actually not better because your body's used to waking up at noon now. So that habit needs to be broken slowly and changed slowly.
Yeah, your body doesn't know if it should shit or wind its watch.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because it's not used to being awake at 7 o'clock. So if you have a game that day and you wake up at 7, that's a change to the system. So the consistency part of it is huge. One thing I remember, I've used this example before for myself, is I remember going into I think it was my first junior camp, and I thought, okay, like I play on Friday, I'm going to get up, I'm going to make sure I'm nice and loose, I'm going to go for a run before early in the morning. So I got up at whatever it was, 7 o'clock, went for a run, and I hadn't been in the habit of running. But my intention was good. Like I want to get into a good routine, but my legs were sore the next day.
You should have just said, today I think I'm going to let someone beat me with a baseball bat.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be good for me.
Right. So in my head, it's like, okay, my intention is good. I'm going to go for a run. But it's like I wasn't in the habit of running. So that was a radical change of inputs to my system. So I went and played Friday and I felt okay. But then Saturday morning, I woke up and my legs were sore, man, because I hadn't been running. So it's not a good time to change what you're doing right, like on the day before or whatever, because you want to have good habits. Like you need to change habits like that slowly, otherwise your performance will be affected. So that's why for me, consistency is the number one thing to having a good routine, good or bad, because even if it's a bad habit, it's a consistent habit. So you don't want to change that now. You want to change it over time to make it better so that it's now more optimal for performance, of course. But I'm not saying hang on to your bad habits. You want to change them, but the time to change them is not right before your game because your body's not used to that now. If you have a really shitty diet, the time to change that isn't the meal before your game for the first time, right? Because now you're eating different things, your digestion's going to be different, you're going to feel weird, your gut's going to be like, what's going on? I'm not used to this. Even if it's better food for you, you're just not used to it, right? If you normally have 2 hot dogs before your game and now you're going to have steak and potatoes, you might be like, holy crap, I'm full, right? That's not a better change in terms of your performance. So the consistency thing is the most important when it comes to your routines, and you want to make sure that that's something that you keep the same as much as possible. And then to your point about when times change, you also need to be able to modify that where it still feels consistent, but now it's just happening at a different time. So that could be the timing of your meals, that could be the timing of your warm-up, that could be the timing of whatever. And that's why it's not even just one routine. It's good to have like a few that you can plug in that your body's used to, depending on the time, right? Because typically even for kids that are in school, it's like your school day routine is different than your weekend routine, right? So you're going to have different routines. It's not that it's going to be 100% the same all the time, but you need to have things that are you can plug in where you need them and how you need them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So the three categories, and then I might give an example before we kind of wrap up.
Yeah, I got 4, by the way.
4 things?
No, 4 categories.
Oh, you got 4?
You said pillars?
Yeah.
Yeah, I added 1.
Okay, so these are mine, and then I want you to say yours,
Yeah.
and then we can kind of line them up.
Yeah.
So like if you count the consistency thing, like that's the most important thing. But then in terms of what you're actually doing for your routine, for me, it's going to be your sleeping, your nutrition, and your movement for the day. So nutrition includes your food and hydration, your sleep is your sleep, and then the movement that you're doing throughout the day. Those are kind of the 3 things that I think about when we're talking about a good pregame routine. What were your 4?
My 4th, and I think it's huge, is your mental state.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Well, it is though.
Yeah, for sure.
It is, and I said it earlier. Was your imaging, because I think it's critical. Like you can do a whole bunch of stuff, and you have the wrong brain going into it. No good. So sleep is number 1 in my opinion, right? And I think we both agree on that. That if you don't sleep properly, you're not going to be worth shit. We had a podcast with Edmonton's, I forget his name now.
Chad Drummond.
Chad Drummond. He's a sports scientist and strength coach for the Edmonton Oilers, and he said like of all the things, injuries, lack of sleep, Nutrition. The first thing that they always fix is sleep. If you can get sleep over a workout, sleep over nutrition, get your sleep. So that's critical to me. Nutrition obviously you have to be healthy, but and movement obviously, yeah. But to me, the equally as important to all of those is imaging, is actually seeing yourself play. And I know, it's funny. I know people resist it a little bit, or they do a little bit, but it's that question again: what percent of the game is mental? And no one says zero. There's a huge part of the game that is a mental thing, and imagery is the number one thing. What is imagery? It's visualizing the game. It's what part of it is visualizing. So this doesn't have to take 48 hours or 12 minutes. Like, it could be only a few minutes. But what you want to do is you put yourself in. So if I'm playing for the Detroit Red Wings and I'm playing in Pittsburgh, I want to close my eyes. I want to know what jersey I'm wearing. I want to know what the arena looks like, and I want to know what Pittsburgh's wearing. And I want to see that. I want to feel that. I want to hear that. And I want to watch myself play one shift, two shifts, three shifts where I'm having nothing but success, where I can hear the ice, I can hear the crowd, I can hear people booing me or cheering me because I'm playing so great. I'm gonna blow someone up, right? And I feel it, and I can hear it, and I'm gonna make good back checks and good shots, score a goal, do everything right in my head for 3-4 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it takes. With you can actually build that imagery skill. And I think the more that people do that, the more they see themselves succeed, they trick their mind into being there already. Because there's a thing that your mind, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fake. So if you can show your subconscious mind that you're a success story all the time, then your mind's already been there and you're succeeding already, right? So you're going there with success. I think it's nothing, man. You can do that in a car ride, bus ride, in the dressing room for 5 minutes. You can do it every night before you go to bed. You can have success.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a huge add. So I'm going to include that when I kind of run through an example. So just touching on the sleep thing. The most important thing for me is that you have a consistent sleep time. And that doesn't necessarily mean go to bed early. Like, you want to go to bed reasonably early. But one thing I tell guys that play, like for me, I go to bed early. Like, I'm normally between 9 and 10. It's like I'm shutting her down. Read a bit, go to bed. If you play hockey, if you're playing junior or whatever, your games are going to be 7:30. Some of these kids playing AAA will have games even later than that. So 2 hours before bed, your body's starting to gear down to go to bed. So if I normally go to bed at 9 o'clock, that means at 7 o'clock, my body's starting to be like, okay, sleep's coming. Well, if you're a hockey player, 7 o'clock is when your game starts. Like 7:30 is when your game starts. So you want to be revving up. You don't want to be going down. Is that optimal for like life in general? Probably not. But in terms of your performance and when you need to perform, it is optimal. So typically I would say somewhere like 11 o'clock area would be bedtime, so that you're not shutting yourself down when it's game time. So that's number one. But then you want that to be consistent. So, and you want it to be like, I'm going to bed to go to sleep. I'm not going to bed to look at my phone or to go play video games or watch a movie or have the TV on or whatever. So you want to have good sleep hygiene. And we've talked about sleep hygiene before, so I'm not going to go into all that, but make sure that you're in a good sleeping environment so that you can go to sleep, right? When you wake up the next day, it doesn't have to be early necessarily, but you want it to be consistent. You go to bed at the same time, you wake up at the same time. So that's for sleeping. And then the nap thing, that for me is like really, whether you need it or not is very individual, because some people like it, some people don't. So you just have to kind of play with that. But I wouldn't do like a really long nap where you're going to start to feel like you're sleepy. Okay, so that's kind of the sleep thing. The nutrition thing for me is when it's game day, you want to keep things light with your eating, because you can always eat more if you're hungry, but if you eat too much, you can't really undo that, right? You want to keep it as clean as you can, because that's typically what's going to digest the best. If you have a lot of saucy, cheesy things that give you good mouth feel,
Yeah,
and that doesn't
salty.
mean salty. That doesn't mean you don't want to. Has to be something that you hate or whatever. But you want to make a good choice, something that's like whole foods, whatever, and keep it light. Typical thing for me is like, if you don't know macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, you want it to be primarily protein and carbs, because that's going to be your fueling for the game. The fats take longer to digest, and that's where you can get that heavy feel in your stomach, which you don't want when you're playing. And you want to eat big meals far away from game time. That's a big mistake I used to make, is I would eat really close to when I have to play, and then would wonder why I have no energy. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm digesting through my whole game, right? So keep things light through the day. You can eat things that you like, protein, carbs, keep it light. That's fine. and then just be aware of your timing on that, right? And it's not like a one time for everyone. Like for me, or how you mentioned it with Charlie before, like he likes to eat around 2:30 or whatever. That's probably where I would peg it to. Some people say like 3 hours before, so that would be for a 7 o'clock game. You're eating at 4 o'clock. For me, that was too close. That was too close for me. I needed it to be, and I didn't figure that out until I was playing in college because nobody told me. But so that's something that you need to be aware of. And then the movement thing, don't sit around all day. That's all that means. Obviously, you don't want to go ape shit like you just played a game. Sometimes you play 2 games in a day and you have to deal with that. But you don't want to be running around like you played a game if you don't need to, but you want to be moving. You don't want to just couch potato all day. So that's an important thing. And then from the mental side, like you already mentioned, you need to put yourself in the right mindset, right? Whether that's imagery or visualization or watching motivational videos or watching your favorite player, just see yourself being successful in that day leading up to your game time, right? And that goes for any age. Those things go for any age. It doesn't matter if you're pro, junior, or youth. Like those are the things that you want to have lined up when you're going into your game. So you got anything to add on any of those ones?
No, absolutely not. It's it could be too overwhelming.
Yeah. So
because you don't want this to be like a project.
No. So the last thing I'm just because another thing people ask a lot is the timing of things, and it's like you have to find out what works for you, right? So I'll give an example that people can try, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, tweak around the times.